to join in our chat about the rain, or you might have something to say about BMX or the jumps, sort of dirt biking facilities that you see. And facilities is kind of a term to describe something a little bit more maybe contained, whereas when you think of BMX riding, it is a great pastime, especially for young people living in regional areas, but you might see those jumps sort of more out in the bush. Do your kids or grandkids ride on those jumps tracks? The one at Spring Gully next to the tennis courts springs to mind. Might be a bit muddy out there today. There's one in Strathfields as well that's shut at the moment, as are the mountain bike trails around Harcourt. Both of those closed after all that damage from the floods last October. But the benefit of these particular places is something that my next guest has been looking into, and he joins you now. In our studio, we've got Dr. Dave Camilleri, lecturer with the Youth Research Collective at Melbourne University. Welcome. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. It's really good to be here talking about BMX.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about what you're actually researching.
Yeah, so we're looking at the well-being elements and also how creativity looks in BMX. And one thing, that really interests me as a lifelong BMXer. I started, really taking it seriously in 1995. I'm 43 now, so it's not just kids and grandkids. I've been doing it for about 28 years, and so I know a lot of other guys who are much older than me in their 50s, and they're still doing it, but it is something that I think can really resonate with young people for many different reasons, and so that drew me to wanting to research it basically. And one thing that we're particularly interested in is the trail side of it, the dirt jumping side, like you've said, and so it is, from the outside, it can look like, digging up the bush and doing that sort of thing. And that's something definitely that we are trying to look at in the research. And what we did is we came up with a survey, but also focus groups. And for our survey, we received about 240 respondents. And with the focus groups, we interviewed 26 riders, and we talked to them about what BMX means to them, what the impact it's had on their relationships, the community that they're a part of, and with some of them really talking about digging and why that is important to them, and to sort of make an important distinction between sort of BMX and mountain bike and the stuff that goes on in Harcourt. Harcourt is slightly different, and there's a lot of trails going through the bush, and it's quite a sort of big footprint, but it's spread out across the whole park. Whereas somewhere like Strathfield, say, it's contained in one area, and the jumps are sort of concentrated there, and there's a sort of a difference in how you engage with that space. The dirt jumps in Strathfield, say, are pretty much for jumping and sort of showing you tricks and doing that sort of thing. Whereas Harcourt, it's it's spaced out. You're riding there. Not always with other people, but it's a very different way of engaging with the environment because it's not so contained. It's sort of sprawled out. But and big
strategies involved in that, the Harcourt mountain biking
massive,
as well, like lots of money given, massive support from authorities and governments to have that as like almost a tourist mecca for those who are interested in mountain biking as such.
Yeah, exactly. And so the difference is somewhere like Strathfield, say, it's very do-it-yourself, I should say, and a lot of these non-authorised dirt jump sites, as councils call them, very grassroots organic. They start off with a bunch of kids who start to do them. They make them that suits them. Yes, they can have gaps or get a bit high and that sort of thing, but the kids usually know their own abilities. They can, from an educational perspective, we call it self-scaffold. So they basically teach themselves how to ride and how to build jumps. And it's really interesting from an educational perspective. And I have a master's student who's doing some research on that particular thing at the moment. But really specifically with those kids going out and building those jumps, really promoting their peer connectedness, the physical exercise. They're being creative. They're learning how to work with the dirt, but also, people around them. And that's a really important thing, especially for some of these kids we're finding in my research. Yeah, they're not so engaged to school, and they're maybe not so inclined to like that sort of thing, which again sort of resonates with me. Funnily enough, we're talking about ATARs. I dropped out of high school. I never did. I did never like school, and left in with a year 10 pass, and went dig my jumps and did all this sort of stuff. And in my 20s, I went back to school, and I'm probably, I don't know, maybe the most educated BMXer with 3 masters and a PhD. But I don't know, maybe someone else out there might know someone
That's
else. But
incredible. So hang on, you left school at the end of year 10?
yeah, and I became
Right.
a apprentice boilermaker, which didn't last very long, maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 months. There's a whole
But
complication there. Yeah,
you had riding at that
pretty
time
much.
in
Yeah,
your life. So what was the benefit of that to you
yeah.
at that age?
And again, this is what drew me to the research, or doing this research. And my PhD is on disengaged young people at school, in particular gifted kids. So kids are really smart, but for some reason they're not successful at school. And so I looked at that in particular, and that sort of then drew me to, I guess, looking at the BMX. But for me and for a lot of riders, it's a real protective factor, not because of the physical stuff, but because of the social stuff. And, imagine if you could go somewhere and do something, and then the people around you all say, "You've done a great job, well done, that was awesome." You do that to them and really just pump each other's tires up. And it's such a positive thing for so many young people. And not only do you have these people around you who recognize you for what you're doing and respect you, you're doing something that you also feel a sense of achievement. Maybe no one else has done that before. But then when you go to school and there's an adult telling you you've got to do this, you've got to do that, or you can't do this, you can't do that, then it sort of, it becomes, I guess, not as rewarding. And so this is some of the stuff we're also seeing in the research, basically. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But I think with the research that we're doing now, we really are trying to focus on that sort of well-being, creativity side, but also acknowledging that if we want it to be sustainable, we also need to acknowledge there's ecological impacts. Also, cultural significance is an important one. If you're digging at a certain place, there might be cultural significance with that land, but councils are often worried about liability also. And so this is something that we want to work with councils, I guess, to make it sustainable for all. We don't want to impact the environment, and we respect the cultural significance of the land. And so I think there are councils that are doing a great job. Mornington, there's really great work going on out there. Diamond Creek, Nillumbuk Council have just drafted a new, a new plan for some dirt jumps, because there's been some dirt jumps there for 30 years in a certain spot, and they were demolished, and there's a whole big issue there. But Australia-wide, some councils do a really great job, some are catching up. Macedon Rangers have just released their BMX strategy, which is fantastic. Mount Alexander Council are currently looking at a BMX strategy there. So I think a lot of councillors and a lot of politicians do value it, but it hasn't
Right.
always been funded.
And would those strategies be so, you just don't get these jumps popping up in the bush?
Yeah.
Which are of a concern to those who, want to conserve the natural environment around there, which brings me to a text message saying, regarding your topic about bike jumps in the bush, my job is to knock down bike jumps in Bendigo. Reasons: 1, when jumps are made, holes are dug, often left open for people to fall and injure themselves, public liability. 2, natural habitat is often knocked down, destroyed to make jumps, often impacting threatened species of flora and fauna. And 3, increased damage to reserves that take decades to recover from. What do you say to that?
Yeah, and we agree. And I love the bush. I love flowers, love birds, all of that. And what we would love is not a fragmented community like we have, where kids have to go out and do it in a certain spot. And they do that because there isn't a place where they can actually do it together. And that has also other, negative impacts for us as BMXers. There's loss of intergenerational connection. We can't mentor younger kids and how to do it properly. And that's one of the things the Mornington Council has addressed. And they got ecological experts to go in and train the kids on different flowers, different flora, and how to protect it. And so that's the sort of thing that we want to go to, and we were working towards something like that before the rains last year basically washed away Strathfield Say. And so now it's been a year where we can't ride there. We're still waiting. The council is, going through a process where they're coming up with some guidelines for us to work with. But for us, ideally, we don't dig. If we had dirt dumped there, we don't have to dig. That's less work for us. We don't want to go dig and, do unnecessary labour. We would love to ride, but when it's raining like this, typically we don't ride. We go up riding time to dig and make our jumps better. So it's so I agree.
Better to kind of have that overseeing, that overarching sort of council, overseeing what's happening out there. A texter says, my kids love them in Strathfield. Say it's great for physical, mental health and helps build their social and problem-solving skills. My kids were there on the weekend. It wasn't shut. I don't know if it's like officially shut or whether there might be some people who are just...
the kids are still going there and using it, but officially there were barricades and we've been told we can't dig there. And we can't dig there because of the cultural significance. There was a report, we haven't seen that yet, but we've been told... and also ecological significance. We've asked for dirt to be dumped there, but they've said they can't dump the dirt because they don't have guidelines for us to dig. So it's just sort of, where are we? We're sort of stuck, and so if we had dirt, we know what to do, we can fix it, but at the moment, we can't dig because we're not allowed to, but we don't have dirt to repair things.
Mick from Echuca says, my 14-year-old son loves building jumps in the bush. I love the team achievements he gets with his mates, but I'm still waiting for the shovels to come home. Oh, Mick, that's something for you to take up with your son. But thank you for that insight. 0467 842 722 is the text message number, or the phone number 1300 813 911. So just finally, Dr. Dave Camilleri, we're speaking to Dr. Dave Camilleri, who dropped out of school at the end of year 10, but now has, did you say 3 masters?
That's correct. 3
master's degrees and is a lecturer with the Youth Research Collective at Melbourne University. Just finally, where are you at with your research? What do you hope it leads to?
Yeah, so at the moment we're writing up the results and we're hoping to release a sort of community report, we're calling it, maybe early next year. They'll be available online, but if you're interested, you can email me at david.camilleri@unimelb.edu.au. We basically are starting off with this community report because we want to put it out there for the riders and for other people who are interested. I guess we could call them stakeholders who might be, I guess, looking for more knowledge around BMX and the importance of it, or what has been said about it, because we're also doing a sort of scoping review, looking at all the literature on it, and often it's really negative. And so we also want to, I guess, talk more on the benefits, but yeah, we want funding basically for programs. So.
Oh, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Really interesting to hear about your research.
You're listening to ABC Central Victoria.
As we have a look at